Hey everybody, Nico here with my father Pasquale, the Consigliori.
Hey everyone.
And today we're going to be talking about how to fix the bond between you and your recruiters. If your people resist you when you try to get them to do things, if they miss their targets consistently and either don't seem to care or they come up with a lot of excuses, if they're frustrated that they want to achieve more but don't know how, and you're frustrated because you don't know how to connect with them on that level, then we've got good news for you. You are the problem, but we can fix you. And we're going to lay out the 3 key elements to help you understand what the bond is made of, how to repair it, and how to use it to lead you and your whole team forward. Before we get started, as always, if you or one of your recruiters is bumping up against the 200K ceiling, do check out the Talent Broker program at talentbrokerprogram.com. It's not just for solo recruiters or for owner managers, it's also for employees.
In fact, Nico, one of the things that's been most surprising to me has been the extraordinary value that we're starting to build in the partnership with the leaders of recruiters while we're working through what they have to master in order to move forward through the program. It's been pretty extraordinary, actually.
Yeah. Here's a testimonial from one of our future talent brokers.
I'm Patrick Ringrose of the Millard Group in Middletown, Connecticut, and I've been working with Pasquale since the middle of February of this year. I've been in the business now about 4 years. I've had one spectacular year, billing close to $400,000 and making President's Club, but that was sandwiched in between 2 years that were very, very low production. Working with Pat and understanding lock-on, working left to right on that lock-on report, makes all the difference in the world. The difference would be between being a hitter in baseball who's a pure feel hitter, as opposed to someone who takes a scientific approach. When the slumps come, and they will come, the feel hitter can only wait until something feels right again. The mathematical hitter, the scientific hitter, the one who uses that mathematical methodology, can attack the problems much, much quicker. Working with Pat has made all the difference. It puts in place a matrix of consistency that was completely missing before. I can't recommend this work enough. And if you open yourself to it, I guarantee you your desk is going to change dramatically for the better, and it will change quickly.
So do please check it out, talentbrokerprogram.com. So, Papa, what are the 3 elements of the bond?
Well, first thing is your knowledge, what's in your head. Mm-hmm. Second is your emotions. Mm-hmm. And then last is your very identity itself.
So it's what you know, how you feel,
yes,
and who you are.
Yeah, and those are great questions. What do you know, how do you feel, and who are you?
So then what is the bond, and how is it revealed by those 3 elements?
Well, those 3 elements are always present in any kind of performance of any sort. And so when you're going to build a bond between 2 people over them, the leader and the follower, or the boss and the employee, whomever it may be, has to agree as to what is necessary to be known. What is the know-how involved in order to get the job done, whatever it may be, in order to be successful?
Give me a quick example.
A recruiting call. How do you break through and talk to somebody you've never spoken to before? How do you get their attention? How do you establish who you are, what the purpose of the call is? And let's say that we're just going to go as far as to get them talking so they tell you a little bit of their story, who they actually are. Okay. So you're opening up a recruiting conversation. Mm-hmm. There's knowledge that's involved.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying? So in order to have the bond over this area of performance, the recruiter has to have the know-how, and there has to be agreement over what is necessary so that the leader or the teacher, the manager, the boss, has to be able to inform the recruiter getting started as to what is the knowledge necessary to have a successful recruiting call. And then on the other end of that, and by the way, recording phone calls is amazing. Sure. You want to be held to account over the knowledge you have. right? And so that sets a know-how level bond in place where there's agreement, knowledge, or know-how, what you understand in your head, and how you're being held to account over that knowledge.
And being held to account to it is like the number of such recruiting calls?
No, that's not what I mean at all. I mean, in a single recruiting call, did the know-how that was imparted to you come through? So did you come off comfortable? Were you able to overcome objections? Were you able to get through gate barriers? Do whatever it took to get that recruiting conversation started and opened up.
So you know how to do it. Are you actually doing it?
Exactly. But most of all, focus on the knowledge. Because what happens for all of us, we start out thinking we've got something, but then we come under pressure. You pick up the phone, you dial it, and you forget what to say. Making the know-how, the knowledge accessible in real time, that's a very different matter. Okay. Also, last thing, when you're doing it in real time, you will forget aspects of what you know, and somebody on the other side of you, somebody that might be listening to a tape recording or hearing you as they go by, they're going to hear where your knowledge gaps show up in a way that you won't remember for yourself.
Okay. So you have agreement and accountability over the first element, knowledge.
And that is a bond. We can call that an intellectual bond. We can call it a know-how bond. But it's a bond between a boss and an employee over what needs to be known in order to have success.
These other three elements, the three elements of the bond, though, are knowledge, and then you've got agreement and accountability. But there's also emotion and identity.
Absolutely right. And the exact structure applies. So the moment you go to execute on your knowledge, you're going to have an emotional experience. And when people have insufficient knowledge, the way that actually shows up is rising frustration.
Sure.
And so here they are on the phone. They're getting upset. They're not breaking through. They're spending an hour only leaving voicemail messages. They don't know how to leave a voicemail message. Frustration is growing. They'd rather do anything than stay on the phone.
Okay.
And so it is your emotions within that rise up and not only wipe out knowledge, but destroy your commitment to whatever the endeavor is. And so these emotions have to be understood in advance. You have to be prepared. You have to know that this is not going to be an easy thing to sustain. Even though a telephone call is the most natural thing in the world, you don't have to make one, then a next, and then a next. And when you're naturally making your phone calls, nobody's judging you. You're not judging yourself whether you succeeded or failed. The only goal, if you will, or target for the call is to have fun by, connecting with somebody that you like in a natural phone call.
Okay.
The unnatural part of what telephone salespeople and recruiters do is that there is a black and white business objective behind every single phone call, and you absolutely either succeed or fail in every phone call, and that is not natural.
Right.
That is not organic to the way we use the telephone when we're driving home away from work. It's so much easier to get somebody on the phone in their commute than it was while they were in the shop, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So it's those emotions that need to be understood in advance. In fact, let me talk about the agreement. We have to agree in advance that this is going to be a challenging, difficult matter in which you will become frustrated. That is absolutely going to happen. So what do we do then? How do we handle our frustration? There's got to be an agreement that is the nature of the work. It's got to be understood between leader and follower. And there's got to be a process for handling that emotion when it's negative and for reinforcing it when it's positive.
Positive in the case of what? Give me an example.
Well, when you nail it, when you've mastered your skills, you know exactly how to make these calls. You've got your list, you get into the rhythm, to the flow of it, you're making connection after connection, and a lot of things are happening. You become not only happy, and you might not call it that, you just become very calm, but you become confident and you become strong. And there's a kind of boldness that comes through. And don't worry about style. I'm talking about the emotion within. I don't mean a bold presentation, which may or may not be there. It's the confidence, this happy emotional confidence, or even calm and cool confident. If you don't like the word happy, doesn't matter. There are positive emotions and negative emotions. The more you succeed, the more positive your emotions are going to be. And both of these need to be understood in advance. And that's what I mean by emotional agreement. So imagine I'm going to send you to make lots of phone calls. I'm going to tell you, here's what you need to know. We got that all worked out, right? We listen to some of your phone calls. The knowledge is there. We've got the accountability. Now, as you make them, you're going to succeed more or less. The less you succeed, the more upset and frustrated you're going to become emotionally.
Sure.
What do we do then? Without accountability on the other side, if you can't come to me and say, hey, I'm getting really frustrated, I'm getting really upset, I don't want to make any more calls right now, if you can't do that, I can't help you.
Okay. So on the knowledge level, we have agreement as to what I know how to do and what I don't know how to do.
Exactly.
And then with that agreement, we establish some form of accountability
Yes.
that I'm going to be doing what we agree that I know how
Absolutely.
to do. And when I go out and do it, I'm sticking to plan. On the emotional level, while I'm doing what we've agreed to that I know how to do, there's going to be an emotional reaction.
Yes.
And it could be very positive, it could also be very negative, but in either case, you as my leader, I as the follower, we have to have an agreement as to what those emotional reactions are going to be, what to expect,
Yes.
and how to respond to them. And the accountability of that is how to respond to them in relation to each other. So if I'm getting frustrated,
Yes.
if I'm getting depressed, if I'm feeling like I want to quit or whatever, we've got to
Nervous.
be able to,
It can be overwhelming nervousness.
Sure. We've got to have a protocol in place to address that.
And we have to have agreed to it. You see, if I see you getting frustrated and you're hanging out at the water cooler, you're spending screen time on your computer, and you're doing anything but making phone calls, and I have to come along and say, hey, I can see there's something going on.
Yeah, it's gonna
you're going to be, and I'm going to not want to do it. You're not going to want to have me do it.
Right.
We have to have an agreement in advance that when I see something's going wrong for you, I'm going to come, Nico, I'm going to we got to talk about this.
Or I come to you.
Exactly, which is even better, much better. Now, before we go on, let's talk about the broken bond here at the emotional level.
Sure.
Here's one of the single greatest mistakes pretty much everyone makes. We keep the word accountability as a negative concept. So it's only I'm holding you to account when I see you're not performing well. You're not hitting your numbers, you're not on the phone, whatever it is, right? But this is exactly wrong.
How so?
Part of the key to our agreement is that you can fight with me over whatever you want to fight with me. But when I establish my case that I know what I'm doing and that I'm the one leading you, then instead of fighting with me, you've got to kind of try to accept my guidance. That makes sense so far, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be easy when you know you're doing something wrong. When you know it's not working, and I come along and say, hey, you're doing something wrong, you're going to have natural agreement.
So either, I'll be able to recognize that I'm not giving my best to the recruiting presentation, or I'm not covering everything that I know I need to in the call.
Or you may not even know what you're doing wrong, but you'll know that you're doing something
Something's
wrong.
not working.
So that if I come along and say, hey, I think this might not be working for you here, you're going to have a natural leaning to agree because you trust me, we've built a good relationship, I have some credibility with you. That's the easy part. The hard part is when I come by and see that you did something fantastic and didn't notice.
How so?
You will not catch yourself doing great things.
Oh, okay.
You will not normally celebrate how awesome you are. Now, after you make a placement or after you've conquered something that you were fighting so hard to conquer, you may run around telling everybody how great you are. You may. Not so likely because it's frowned upon in our society. But that's really not the moment I'm talking about. I'm talking about after, you've been struggling to overcome gatekeepers. And then you just sweet talk somebody into putting you right through.
Yeah.
Right? And I saw you do that. I come along and I go, hey man, that was out of this world. You're going to be happy in your heart, but your first reaction is going to be to disagree.
No, yeah, to diminish it or...
To diminish or even to disagree. And here's why. Because this is like the 100th time you've done it. 99 times you did it lousy or less and less lousy, but this time you just got it great.
Well, that time I got lucky, obviously.
There's the point. And see, that is the hallmark of great accountability. When you discover that if I'm telling you if I'm worthy of it, and I tell you you did something fantastic, your resistance to this is something you have to learn how to fight.
Okay.
And I have to be strong enough to let you know, look, it's not just my criticism you're going to have to fight with and, we'll deal with, and I'm going to have to overcome your resistance. It's even more importantly when I come to praise you. When I come to tell you you did something great, you need to pay attention to that. And let me give the principle from a performance perspective. An uncelebrated victory is vastly less likely to be repeated than a celebrated one.
So then that's now the first element is knowledge, the second element is emotion, the third is identity. How does that work?
Well, you can see at this level of emotional bond we were just talking about, setting up an agreement in advance and accountability over one's own emotions is going to bridge instantly into who you actually are. Can you handle that? Can you handle a relationship?
Go there.
Can you go there? Yeah. Can you handle the praise? Can you handle the criticism? Can you learn from failures? And not just failures, like you analyze it all by yourself and you made your little correction and adaptation. And no, that somebody else is telling you about. It takes an incredibly resilient, let's use the word ego for the moment here. And, we really should combine the two, ego, identity. And for me, the word ego tends to be more good than bad. Just like I move accountability out of the negative domain and into the positive one, for me, ego strength is what I'm always looking for in someone.
Type of resilience.
Absolutely. And so what we call ego normally tends to be ego weakness or ego brittleness, right? So I've got like this, I'm instant to be insulted. I have to protect my identity, my face, my pride, it's all this whole macho stuff.
Sure.
That's not ego strength. Ego strength is one of the key characteristics of your identity. And so there is no way to get through this. And forget about the leader and the follower for a second. Just think about the telephone and think about the candidates and the clients over the course of years. If you're going to succeed as a recruiter, your identity, your emotions are shouted through the phone, right? But through the relationships you establish, your identity becomes known. They know who you are. So the candidates and the clients, eventually you can't fool them. Right. They know exactly, even more so your coworkers and your boss.
Sure.
They know who you are. And let's say it one more way. To succeed in recruiting absolutely will require all the ego and identity strength you possibly have and more. It's the and more part that's the really daunting thing. You come to work, you get started, you're a wonderful human being already, right? You're going to have to become 2, 3, 5 times better than you are to make it through the long haul.
Yeah, that's where the relationship, where that bond can make or break somebody's success, their career.
Well, that's ultimately where it's made or broken.
Okay.
And this is why we see the phenomenon, if you're an owner, you should pay very careful attention to this, of people being led to success and then they have to leave. So they're led by an owner and there's this wonderful bond for a time.
Yeah.
But there is no way to establish a life-level connection through time after a certain level of success. It's one of the weakest things we've done in our industry of recruiting. Our best performers feel they have to leave the shop where they were first taught how to do this. And often it is actually the broken bond of relationship at the identity level between the stellar performer, the true stars, and the star managers who led them there. They can't bond at the identity level over the course of a lifetime trajectory.
Well, if we look at this in terms of levels of difficulty.
Yep.
At the knowledge level, there's a little bit of challenge there, but it's relatively
it's pretty easy.
We can talk about what you do or you do not know.
And it remains essentially tactical, how to get through a gatekeeper, how to open up a recruiting call is tactical information that can be shared and understood knowledge mind to mind.
We can come to agreement, we can implement some sort of accountability protocol there. Emotional, we're coming to the next level of difficulty.
Yes.
I mean, especially for
It's rising.
if that could be awkward. You don't necessarily know how to discuss our emotions.
And may have never been there before. May have never had this kind of an interaction before in your entire life.
So that can be challenging. Not though here at the level
Exactly.
of identity. How do you even talk about that?
Well, my word for it, Nico, and you and I have struggled with this, is the word dream.
Yeah. Okay.
You have to have a dream for your entire life. And to build the bond, to fix the bond, to build it or to fix it when it's broken. If I'm your leader, the mandate that I have accepted is that I have to not only have a dream for you, I have to have the right dream for you. And the right dream means one that is challenging and keeps you moving forward through the stages of your life as we work together. But more than anything else, it's one that you agree to. It's one that moves and motivates you. See, go ahead.
So what does it mean to have a dream for another person? I mean, having a dream for yourself, pretty much everybody understands that. It's pretty clear. How do you have a dream for another person?
I want you to be a better father than I am.
Okay.
That's an example.
Okay.
It can be that simple. Let's say that you started out in life as a recruiter yourself. You left the shop that you were in. Now you're the owner of a shop and you've hired someone. Your dream can be, and can be a beautiful dream, that when they're ready to do the same thing, you're going to help them out. And I have coached that, and I have clients that are second, and I'm coming up on some prospects I have that are going to be third-generation clients that have gone through ownership, employee to an owner, ownership of their own, an employee to that owner, and now new ownership. Yeah. I'm coming up on third generation. I'm so proud of that. Okay. All right, so one thing could be that when it's time for you to leave, we do it right. We do it the right, and there is a right way, and I'll brag that I have coached that many times. Okay, but
what about those? All right, so outside of they then open their own shop. What's a way for
far more important? Let's put something in between. So here's the owner, here's the account executive, and here's the firm. If I'm going to have a dream for your life, and I own this firm, and I don't plan on selling it, then I have to have a dream that includes you being inside this firm properly rewarded in such a manner that motivates you at every stage of your professional life. So we're talking an entire life cycle. Let's break it down into something really simple and clean. At first, you have to learn how to perform. You have to learn how to succeed and, set a pace as a performance leader. Then you got to learn how to recruit, teach, train, and develop other people. So you start out as a follower. You master skills that set you in a position of leadership by way of your performance. But then you have to be a leader to bring other people in and teach them how to perform. So can you see how that flow, there's a kind of an up and down over time? If I'm going to have a dream for your life as starts out as my employee, maybe we should be talking about partnership, right? Some form of alliance that works so that you believe in the firm, you believe in your employee status within the firm, and it's prestigious for you, and it enriches you, and it adequately rewards you for your talent, your effort, your contribution, your risk, and your cost of opportunity. You could go somewhere else. You could open up in your own. You see, there has to be a dream there.
And it empowers whatever I want to build outside of my career.
Absolutely. Which we haven't talked about that at all yet. Okay. But I don't think any of our viewers will be surprised that we'd be talking about your children, your community, your church, whatever, your marriage, your relationships, your love life. All of these are involved.
And when you've been working with somebody as closely as you do as the owner of a recruiter, with two recruiting colleagues, I mean, you get to know each other.
Absolutely.
So let's walk through this to summarize one more time.
Sure.
Imagining a conversation between a boss and employee, going through this knowledge, emotion, identities. It's something that you do all in one conversation?
Usually not. Yeah. I would no, usually not.
Start with knowledge.
Now, you really always want to start with knowledge if you see that performance is falling off in any area. And so the more tactical the area, the more intensely you want to focus on the know-how, what needs to be known. And you want to be able to openly and honestly discuss together exactly what you remembered and what you forgot, what you know and what you don't know, what you actually haven't been trained in, because we leaders will often think we taught you something and we didn't. So we've got to have an open conversation about what is known. So that's the first place to go over any performance area, and the more tactical, the more likely it is that there's a knowledge gap.
Okay. You have a accountability protocol in place then for the knowledge.
Right.
Going then to the conversation on the emotional level.
Yes. We have to have an agreement that we're going to talk about emotions. Okay. That has to be in place. When you're not happy, when you're angry, when you're frustrated, that's the negative side. When you're happy but don't know if you're happy and you know it, if you don't know, that you will accept praise to the best of your ability. And in fact, one more thing, I teach a culture of crowing. Sure. I teach a culture of open-hearted bragging and claiming what you have done great. Now, other people won't like that same culture. These things need to be discussed or at least understood.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so there's got to be an agreement that you'll speak about emotions later. And so when your performance is going in the wrong direction and I can see that there's an emotional challenge, I've got to be able to go there and help you deal with it. Mm-hmm. And that's going to mean that once your emotion has passed in the negative, we're going to do something that we call failure analysis. That's triggered by negative emotions that arise as a result of not succeeding in whatever you're doing in a frustrating and perhaps even enraging manner. Sure. So you have to let the emotion pass a little, but then we have to agree that we're going to analyze the performance, find a lesson within it, the seed of our coming success, and make a change. That's all got to be there emotionally. The exact same thing on the success side. When you've succeeded, we've got to celebrate it. You've got to let me have some impact upon you so that I join you in the emotion, and we've got to reinforce that you're going to repeat exactly what you did and go even higher.
Knowledge, emotion, identity. Over time, you're getting to know this person on a deep identity level,
mm-hmm.
and you talk about their dream or your dream for them.
That's when we succeed. One of the values that over the decades of my work with owners of recruiting organizations, one of the great values that I'm always happy to pitch is that if I see that you're in the wrong relationship, I'll be the guy to say, this isn't working.
Sure.
And so often, let's say that you've got really good, like you're a really good manager, you have knowledge about all of this, you're a natural with this kind of thing, you've got strong relationships, you're an honest person, and so you give the knowledge and you establish the emotional bond, but it's still not working. Mm-hmm. Why? Often because to be a recruiter is an identity level commitment, and it has to work. And who knows how it works? Who knows why it works? Who knows why one person is successful and another isn't? I don't claim to know that in advance. I claim to be able to observe it because I can understand. Did they get the knowledge? Yes or no? If they didn't get the knowledge, you don't get to judge them for the knowledge you didn't give them. Sure. All right? If they can't handle their emotions, but you've never opened up a conversation with them about the emotions of recruiting, you can't judge them. But when you put these things in place and you start to look at knowledge and emotion, mm-hmm. the identity begins to be revealed. Okay. Some people just don't want to be on the phone. Some people don't want to face rejection. Some people would do anything like, and sometimes we need to move them around because maybe they're a really good internet researcher where they don't need to be on the phone at all. Or maybe they can handle the recruiting conversation but not the marketing, which is why project coordinators have arisen in our industry. When I was first introduced to our industry back in '93, they were just coming on. In fact, I believe I served the very first project coordinator in all of MRI back in 1993 as one of the employees of one of my clients back then. Mm-hmm. At any rate, there are natural spots for people that are driven more by the identity than any other thing. And so positive and negative. If it's not working, it may well be that somebody's just not going to take the criticism, or they're just not going to make the calls. They're not going to live by a plan. They can't be judged by performance, black and white, success or failure, not only day by day, but moment by moment. It's just the wrong kind of work. They don't have the identity.
Got it. All right.
Now I don't want to end on a negative.
Let's go to the positive.
If you own a recruiting organization, you can make this bond. You can teach the knowledge, you can establish the emotional relationship, and you can build a dream at the life level for yourself, for the firm you're trying to build, and for the performance in each individual that you hire. I want you to have tremendous confidence that with this structure, and maybe it seems a little complex when you're looking at all the moving parts, but it's really quite simple. It's agreement, bond, accountability. Agreement, whatever it is that you're going to bond over, be it knowledge, emotion, or identity. So agreement, bond, accountability. You go back and forth between that. You are going to be amazed at what you can create.
Well, thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions about how to fix the bond between you and your recruiters using these 3 elements, please hit reply to this email or send us a message. We'll be happy to help. And as always, don't forget to check out the Talent Broker program at talentbrokerprogram.com.
Thank you.